Welcome to the Grace Space, a transmission for the sovereign soul.
The reality is that something like 7 out of 10 stars up there has an Earth around it. So when you look up into the sky and you think about an Earth with the people on it, on 7 out of 10 of them, we can see about 3,000 stars with our naked eye. That's all we can see. And beyond that, there is trillions and trillions of them. And so that's how many the universe is teeming with intelligent life. And that's what they're not telling us. Like, when you really look at it, and boil it down, it's as if we're on an island and they've kept us in the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
And they come to the island and say, "What did you guys dig up my stuff?" We're giving them, whatever it is, some resource. And they go, "Okay, we'll see you later. This is cool. And we're going to take some of and you come with us. Goodbye." And we're stuck on this island. They're like, "Oh, there's nothing out there. You'll fall off the edge. Don't make a boat. Just us. We know. See you later." And it's a
Yeah.
big secret. They sneak in at night, and then the rest of the world is going on with cities and airplanes and trains and computers. All that's going on around this, but the people on the island are stuck in the Stone Ages, and they keep lying to them, telling them, for exploitation. And I think
Yes.
that's really the accurate metaphor for the Earth. That's what we are. We are on an island around metropolises of teeming with life, billions of people, and the Earth is this little island out at sea that nobody's allowed to go to. And they come here and they tell us they take what they want and leave. And that's alien abduction, and that's why the secret. It's not because people aren't ready for it.
Hey everyone, real quick before we begin, if this content matters to you, you're warmly invited to subscribe to this channel, to like this video, to leave a comment, or all three. I read all the comments, and your engagement is really important because when you engage, it tells YouTube to push this content out to more people who would find value in it. Now that I understand this, I engage a lot more with the channels that are important to me because I know it really matters. Thanks for listening. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Grace Space. I had a conversation last night with Tony Rodrigues, probably one of the most extraordinary and profoundly human explorations that we've ever shared here. You might know Tony from his testimony about the secret space program. You might know him as a remote viewing teacher. We all know him for the courage that it takes to speak publicly about memories that were never meant to surface. What unfolded in our time together was not simply a retelling of events. Tony's done lots of interviews, and the details of what he went through are fascinating and sometimes horrific to behold. And I encourage you to listen to his testimony on other channels as well. What we got into was a revelation of the architecture behind human memory, consciousness, manipulation, resilience, and the vastness of who we really are. Tony speaks with such disarming honesty, not to convince anybody, but to offer one facet of a much larger truth that humanity is only just beginning to remember. We explore how memories return after decades of suppression, why trauma and emotional spikes act as anchors of recall, what remote viewing actually accesses, and how consciousness itself exists beyond the limits of time and space. He knows this firsthand. Well, we all do, somewhere in there. We also got into cloning and the 20-year programs. We got into the dilution and the reintegration of consciousness and what he's learned from thousands of people who recognize pieces of their own story in his. We discussed psychological operations, subliminal technologies, frequency entrainment, and the ways that our reality has been shaped without our awareness. This is not to inspire fear, but to restore our agency in what's going on. And ultimately, Tony offers something deeply hopeful that disclosure is not only inevitable, but close, and that humanity is far more powerful, vast, and sovereign than the systems that have always tried to contain us. This is a conversation about remembering who we are. Let's get into it. Tony, I'm so honored that you're here. We were just talking before the recording started, and you said, wait, this is all the good stuff, right? Because we were just sharing about our various backgrounds, our different backgrounds. I couldn't have a more different background from yours. I mean,
Well,
well, yeah, and I guess some people would debate that. Some people believe that we're all on some level experiencing a kind of interference like what you have experienced, even though it might not be to the same degree. So I'm really interested in hearing what you think about that.
well, first, thanks for having me, Claire. It's great to see you. We got to know each other through one of my groups, and I'm very honored that you'd have me here on your show. So thanks for having me. First and foremost, I always regard myself when I look in the mirror as a normal person, as a normal guy. I, you know, I had kind of a middle life. I'm a blue collar guy. I worked in the construction field for 30 years and raised my kids and bought into the illusion that, for most of my life that we're all under. I had a glimpse behind the curtain when I was young, when they took me and in those programs, and I didn't remember it until a certain age. And since I remembered it, my entire life turned around because not only did I have um, the remembering of looking behind the curtain, I began to look and I actually had enough to point out, evidence, if we want to call it that. And so my life turned completely on a dime at that point after 2015 and really has grown into where I am now. So now I carry the mantle of being as weird as possible. Like I own it. People in public, once in a while, it doesn't happen a lot, but I'll be in public at a grocery store or out for a bite to eat, and or just whatever. You go to the doctor, and they go, "So what do you do for a living?" And I go, "Well, I teach remote viewing," and that's the watered down. That's as watered down as I can give them these days. And I say, "I teach remote viewing," and they look at me and go, "Well, okay," and they change the subject. Right? They don't know anything about it. It sounds crazy. And it ends there. I do a lot of things for a living, like I'm juggling many things at all times. And so I can pick one when I answer that. But the remote viewing one, I think, is the easiest one for me because it is the bulk of my time these days. And but I was much more normal when I was young, and since going through what I did and writing the book, um, it's turned into a mission. It really has turned into a calling. Like it was a life. I never gave it the weight that when somebody said, this was my calling. I was called to do this, and I go, yeah, okay, that's great. It looks like you're doing good. And I didn't give it the heaviness that it really has. And so I was called to do what I'm doing, and my entire life has followed suit. And I guess the constant has just been being honest to my ability, right? So just being truthful. That's really all I got. So, and that has fueled everything. That has fueled the entire trajectory, and just being honest. And it seems to get more difficult as time goes by.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, first of all, I love what you just said. I mean, if we were all to follow that as, one sustaining value through life, just to be honest, right? To be as transparent as possible, where would that take us, right? I mean, that's what calls us to a sense of mission. It's not because we decided intellectually that we're going to have a mission and that we're going to be called to something that it happens. It only happens when our mask falls away. It only happens when we can start to be real, and then we start to experience the real, and then we get lined up with why we're actually here. So I'm fascinated about that for you. Like, how did you go from feeling like you had to hide things to feeling like you could talk about what happened to you?
I was afraid. in the beginning, and it was fear. So I had three kids. My kids were teens. My youngest, I think, in 2015 was 10, 11. And I didn't know. Firstly, I thought it was just going to be a temporary. I thought I got my memories back of my abduction event and what I went through, and I found evidence. I quickly found supportive evidence. And I thought, man, I don't want to take this to the grave. So I was fueled by personal guilt. And I've always lived my kind of life, I've always lived with the intention that in the last few minutes of my life, I would not be filled with regret, right? So I think that your last minute is the best one and the worst one, depending on how you lived your life. And I think not everybody, but most people get 2 or 3 minutes fully conscious that they're aware that they're dead, right? So boom, you're dead. Your heart stops, your body, whatever happened, and your brain is active for 3 minutes or so. And in that time, many chemicals are released, and I absolutely believe that your life replays, and that's the judgment. I honestly do. And it's a long story. Start Project Star Maker, my second book. I kind of detail how I came to this and what I went through, which is, I'm glad we're not talking about the how the sausage got made, and we're talking about after, the effect on my life. But I feel that in that last minute, if you see something, like if you're living today and you ask yourself, am I going to regret this in the last minute? If I died tomorrow on the sidewalk and I'm laying there looking at my life, would I look back on what I just did and regret? And if
Right.
that's the case, then that's your mission, what you need to do. You need to immediately fix that regret. And so that's what motivated me in the beginning to talk about it, to research it, to say, I don't want to go. I got all this knowledge of what happened to me. And then things checked out. I had evidence. The places are real. And I thought, on my deathbed, if I'm sitting there and I should have said, man, I should have said something. I should have told somebody about this. This is important. It could help somebody. And so that's what motivated me in the beginning. And then when it was kind of like I jumped off the cliff, I thought, man, is my family safe? Am I going to be safe? Like, if this is real, am I in trouble now? And the Dr. Sala, I was on the second show I was ever on was Exopolitics, and he said, "Look, this is the going public is your defense. So if you tell your story publicly and then something happens to you, it's they don't want that, and they kind of want people to know that there are people out there that are afraid of them."
Mhm.
Um, so that motivated me in the beginning, and then after that, I thought I was gonna be one show, 1 or 2 shows, and that was it. And I was going to go back to my life, and that would be it, and it would just fade away. And I'd seen so many others go that route, right? So I've seen so many people come forward, tell their story, and then you never hear from them again. I thought that was me. That's cool, and it didn't turn into that. One led to another, led to another, led to another, and like I said, it was a real calling the way that it all came together. And during that time, for the first 2 years, because I was doing interviews and things and it was fresh on my mind, and I was also processing the emotions, the damage from it. I remembered, being greatly abused, and that really affected my whole psyche. Because think about with having amnesia for something, and then all of a sudden the memories come back. It's like that you lived that life, you lived that amnesia for a year. You lived a life, and that's you are the person you are today was the sum of your experiences that give you your judgment on how to behave. And so I had all this memory come back, and I became ultimately a different person. And I had to really process. It took years. It was like 5 years to process. And I became a different person. And, like my wife of 23 years, she said it all the time. I fell in love with Tony Rodrigues, not TonyRodrigues.com. And she's like, and so we eventually parted over it because I was essentially a different person. And what made me happy before my memories came back no longer was anything I was interested in. After I realized the bar for happiness was much lower. I could be happy anywhere. So I don't know if I'm gotten straight away from your question or not, Claire.
No, I love it. I mean, what I'm, there's so many things going through my mind as I'm listening to you, but just the last thing you said about, becoming a different person after you get your memories back. I mean, I feel like we're all experiencing, we have all been in a collective amnesia. That's what waking up is.
Yeah.
Waking up is wait a second, nothing is what I thought it was. You have a life before it, and then you have a life after it, and things do change. I mean, I can say in my own personal life, nothing is the same as it was 5 years ago. Nothing.
I think, and I think for a lot of people, amnesia is the right word, but I think for most of the masses, we could call it a collective hypnosis.
Yes.
And they're hypnotized and they're on this treadmill chasing this carrot hanging on a stick. That's never going to happen. And you see it so many people, and I watched it. I watched my father do it. And so many people that are chasing this happy one day. I'll be happy one day. I'll save up this. And that was me. I had a number. I had a financial number that if I could get to this number, all of a sudden, I'll have value and I can be happy and people will like me and I'd be worthy. And until then, I need to just keep working. And I had this illusion, this like finish line. And so I see so many people have it and what they're doing, and I'm like, you don't need that. You can be happy right now. You can just be happy. Everything's fine right now. You're causing trouble chasing this thing that's basically never going to happen. Or even if it does, and in my father's case, he did achieve his number. He got everything he wanted. He worked his whole life away, and at the very, in his retirement, he saved up and worked for his retirement, and he got everything he wanted, and he was miserable because he didn't know how to he didn't really, there was nothing to chase after that. And he just didn't have that presence. He didn't have the future any longer. It was present and he was totally foreign. And me, after what I went through, just having the freedom to go to the store and get some bubble gum and go and enjoy the day and drive home, like that freedom was a big deal, and I took it for what it is. And I look at everything that I have now in my life now, and I'm like super blessed, and it actually is making it easier to move forward, right? So I I feel like I'm confusing myself. So, but that's kind of like what happened there. It was 2015, and then my life switched, and
So was there something like, was there a particular incident or something that caused your memories to come back? Did it all just come flooding in at once? How did it happen?
so I was watching. At the time I was working at home. I was a dispatcher for a taxi company, and I was working a few jobs. But that's what I did during my day, and I had couple. It was a slow off period after the holidays. It was dead slow. So January, February, it was May, and I saw an interview, the Randy Kramer interview with Dr. Sala, and he explained that they abductees into these military programs with ETs are taken and they go through time dilation, or they go through a series and they're put back the same night. So and this is where it sounds incredible. I'm losing anybody that doesn't know, that's watching this. This is where I lose you. I get the 1,000-yard stare, but we have thousands, if not millions, 50,000 UFO sightings a year globally. We have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of abduction experiences that all have same common denominators, and people feel different. And it was what happened to me. I was 10 years old. They take people and they can keep them for a long period of time, and then with their ability to perturb time, put them back exactly where they left them. So you can be gone for 30 minutes, but live 20 years and then go back to that body at the same age and the same time, and then they put you back. And so we're talking about really radically advanced technology. William Tompkins, in his book Selected by Extraterrestrials, tells the whole story about that. So for people that can't have a hard time, people have a hard time swallowing that, I say that read the William Tompkins book. He worked for NASA for the Apollo missions. He really details that. When he said that to me, all the bits and pieces of memories that I had made sense all of a sudden, because I had remembered being a kid with ETs. And then I remembered being a teenager working. And then I remembered being an adult with a career on a ship. And then coming back as an older man. And then I remember being a kid, like all those. So I thought maybe I was taken many times, maybe I was taken once, or maybe it's all just a dream or something. I'll worry about it later. I have a number to chase. And that was really my life. Like it was all through my life that I had these snippets that were definitely not dreams or imagination. They were closer to memories than. And so when Randy explained that in a video, I literally went, "Oh my God, that's what they did." And as soon as those broken memories that were scattered, as soon as all those puzzle pieces had somewhere to go, and I went, "Oh, there was 20 years that they had me," and I went, "Oh, that means and then so each memory, instead of me, my subconscious fight holding it, suppressing it, it was the feeling of the mattress in the bag, the foam mattress when you open it out of the package and it goes. It was
Yes.
that. It was a vacuum sealing, and that my head did that. Fast forward to about a year after that event. And again, so I remembered living places that can easily prove I've never been. Still have never been to Peru. It's not on my passport, but I have a great deal of information and memory about what's in Peru, and. So I found these places, but in a year later, I started working with Dr. Sala, researchers, because counseling wasn't available for people like that, and I knew they were going to drug me quick, and I was functioning. I don't have some kind of underlying mental problem. I get asked that once in a while. So have you ever been treated for mental problems? Are you on any medication? No, and I've always been kind of functioning. I had substance abuse in my teens and 20s, like most kids did back then, but. Dr. Salas said, "Hey, read this." About 6 months, 6 months to a year later after that memory event, which was May of 2015, he said, "Read this. This is the Mars records." And when like the first page, there were two guys that remembered working on Mars. They got their memories back. One of them used kinesiology.
Mm.
So he was doing muscle testing, but like a kinesiology machine, and somehow he accessed his repressed memories through kinesiology. The other one got an MRI scan of his head, and then a few days later got his memories back of working on Mars, of his career on Mars. And I went, I'll be damned, I got an MRI scan. Let me look at that. And I was in the Kaiser Permanente medical system back then. I lived on Maui, and so
Oh.
I had the website portal, and it was a year later, and I looked up the date, and lo and behold, it was about 10 days before my first email that I sent out. So as soon as I got my memories back, I began emailing help. And it was about 10 days. I was able to narrow it down through the records that I had, that I got an MRI scan. I went to the doctor about a week and a half before that event, and I was complaining it was just my yearly checkup. And I said, "I've been having headaches. And she said, "Well, while you're here," it was a new doctor. And she said, "Well, since you're new, let's check that out now. It's because I want to build up the doctor wants to build a file." And
Yeah.
so I got an MRI scan of my head, nothing happened, nothing clear. And then 10 days later, get memories back of working in space for 20 years.
What do you think it's about what is it in the MRI that might stimulate that?
So many people got a hold of me after I went public saying, "I think I went through the same thing. I don't have the memories you do." And I would bring up MRI. And I started looking at how to build one. I thought, I'm going to build one. For all these people to do this, I'm going to build one in my garage, and then I'll invite them over and run them through the MRI, and then we'll see if that's a therapy. Because there's so many people reach out to me. I really wanted to help. I was so in the first 3 months of my memories back, and like I said, emotionally, I was putting together being very greatly abused. I was internalizing like the whole grief thing, the internalizing of it, and I was all alone. My wife didn't believe in aliens. If they'd be in the Bible, that. So my kids, I couldn't burden them with it, and none of the people I didn't really have anybody. And so when people started to come to me saying that they feel the same thing, I wanted to be there for them in the way that nobody was for me. And so anyhow, I tried to build an MRI or looked into it, and they're just incredibly powerful machines. It's like an industrial grade. Like you don't like it doesn't just plug into your wall. It's you have to have like what is it, phase three electrical service available, and then they're like millions of dollars. It's $1 million in parts.
So,
So
I mean, I'm just like, how do you get the idea to build an MRI? Like, that would never, you must be a science person. You must be like naturally inclined to that because I wouldn't be like, I think I'll just build one
I
myself.
am like that. I am a tinkerer. I like to build my own device, my own. I'm working. I have a pile of parts that are not done because I tinker and then I put them together and like I have a few things that work. You know, where is it? The obelisk. It works. It
Yeah.
works. I
Oh,
build the
I
obelisk
want to
that.
talk about all that stuff too. Yeah. Yeah.
But I've always been kind of like that, like a garage guy. And anyhow, I think that there may be a um, when you get exposed to such a huge Gauss of a magnetic field that there are blocks. Like if you think about the brain neurons, electrical chemistry, that you have kind of like the electrical field going this way, that they put a block in there, a chemical block, and it makes your electrons spin one way. And when you're in that field, it makes them stop spinning or spin in a different way and perturb. And then when you're let go, it's not coherent anymore. The block is not coherent. That was that it just changes spin on charged neurons,
So,
right?
so do you think that's how they create the memory loss, or they just block the memories by messing with
I act-
the
I actually
flow?
remember a lot of it, a lot of the process, and it's not, they don't just give you a pill or a shot and that's it when they delete your memory. It actually was a long process. They target so I remember the way that I remember when they put me back and they were blocking my memory, you know, and we're talking about aliens. So to be clear,
Yeah.
we're talking about me being abducted and then living for 20 years and then they putting me through medical procedures and blocking my memory and then doing some grand procedure to put me back into my 10-year-old body back in 1982 from 2002 and me waking up the next day. So that's what we're talking about here. So to be clear, and I know what that sounds like to somebody that doesn't study this subject, but I remember that they worked on regions of the brain. So you went in, it was a big area, like a medical facility. And if you think, remember, have you ever seen in the arcade the driving games where you get inside the game and you're driving and it's got the booth and the curtain? They got
Yeah.
shooting games like that at the movie theater. You know, you actually sit inside the arcade game and it's got its own, you know, privacy, and then you play these games. It was like that, but it was industrial grade hypnosis.
Hmm.
And you'd go inside a booth like that, and they were actually hitting. It was painful. They were giving me, you know, long needle injections into regions of the specific regions of the brain, and then exposing you to the industrial grade hypnosis. And the, you know, and I remember not being cooperative at first and laughing and saying, "This is ridiculous. Do you think this is actually going to work?" And the result is, I really still don't remember a lot of faces. I don't remember the verbal names of places. It's very hard for me to remember street names or locations that I was, even though I was able to do. I've gotten some, but it still is a region of the memory that hasn't returned. And
Right.
specifically faces. I can remember bodies, people there, but I can't remember their faces. Like it's a gray blur when I think back into the memories. And there have been people that I've met that are back here that, you know, and but it's like a region of the brain that worked still. The MRI didn't undo that.
Mm.
So I think there are several layers of the way that they block your memories.
Well, and it must not be as effective as they hope for it to be because there are so many people who are remembering now, you know.
I think there's a lot of factors involved, and I think on some level, from working with people, from doing consultations, one-on-ones, I think they got better at it.
Mm.
So, and I was taken when I was 10, and I lived until I was 30, and then was put back, and then I lived until I was 43 before I got the MRI.
Right.
So it was a long period. Like for me to think back to 9 years old is a very long time ago. But for me to think to 11 years old isn't as far, if that makes sense. So it's just that's a situation of it all. Like to think back of my 7th birthday feels like an entire different era.
Right.
My 9th birthday, and I do have a lot of memories of my childhood. A lot of people don't. A lot of people have no memory of 9 years old or earlier. I was shocked by that when I started working with people about to do the memory exercises that I developed. And
Well, I don't. I mean, I have selected memories before the age of 9, 10. Yeah, but I don't have a lot of memory.
and that's fairly common. But I can remember quite a bit of it. I remember all the events. But you know what? My parents, the household was very turbulent.
Mm.
My parents were passionate. They'd fight one day and love each other the next day, and we celebrated. But, like it was emotionally roller coaster in my childhood. So I was present in a way that I think forces those memories. And also, childhood abuse may be the vehicle for retrieving memory. So what we see, and this is a dark secret of the community of people that are abductees in the secret space program community and elsewhere in ufology, people that have the memories of what happened to them often have childhood abuse in common.
Yeah.
And so I think that's causes a brain structure to happen, or
Yeah.
more accurately, like a part of your brain to be strong, to be worked out like a muscle. And so you can defeat the blocks. Whereas people that had an even keel, they didn't have to use that panic part of their brain to survive, to adapt to a panicky, say, oh God, I'm going to be abused. People that didn't have that tend to be the ones that don't get their memories back, because the abuse gets compartmentalized and they can isolate that and to be done with it. And I'm theorizing here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it seems that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another reason why I'm so glad you're here, Tony, because we need to bring this stuff out into the open, shine the light on it. I think there's far more people than we ever imagined who either are in your situation or, went through something similar to what you went through, or went through some other degree of abuse. And even if they were not abducted or put part of secret space programs or anything like that, the shame and the taboo around abuse is a fragmentation of our psyche, and it causes us to, to sort of loop in these unproductive places, and we never get to become who we're here to be. So however it happens, whatever the experience is, I want to shine a light on it, and I want to, normalize talking about it so that, you don't get the 1,000-mile stare when you start to recount what happened to you.
I've found that the same phenomenon is true for fragmented memories. So like you said, like you don't remember your early years. Hopefully it's because they were uneventful and stable and safe, and you had a great childhood. But there's a lot of people that have had other things happen in their life, and it doesn't involve being abducted by aliens, and they have fragmented memories or repressed memories. And the exercise, I found that the exercises that I came up with to remember also applied to people like that. Like it wasn't only people that were abductees. Can I tell the little story about how I did that?
Yeah.
I did it early on in the first few years. I did a lot of interviews. Actually, for the first 5, 6 years, I did a ton of interviews. I was doing 3 a week, 4 a week sometimes.
Wow.
And and every interview would generate people that contacted me and said, look, I think I went through, can I talk to you, please? I just want your opinion on what happened to me. And first, like I said, I tried to keep up with it. I still get them. The email is still full of them, but I just have moved away from that. The consultations are just like a huge, it's a huge effort to do it all the time. And people, it's like just eats a ton of my life out. And I have too many other things going on. Anyhow, in the beginning, I did a show and a guy asked me a beautiful question. He said, So you were living in space, in a colony in space that had spaceships and aliens, like in Star Wars. And he said, "How did you cut your hair?" And I said, "That's a good question. I'm not sure. I remember they didn't allow facial hair, so I wasn't allowed to have facial hair. And I had a girlfriend up there that said you would look so much better if you let your hair grow out. And I asked and tried to get permission, and they wouldn't do it. But I said I couldn't remember it, and they said, "Well, how about brushing your teeth? What was the toilet like? You know, what kind of shoes did you wear?" And the guy, these are really good basic questions that you should ask contact people to say this stuff. And I said, "Man, that's weird because I don't have a lot of memory for that right now." And what happened was in the beginning, I remembered all of the spikes, the emotional spikes. So your memories are tied to emotions,
Yes.
right? So if I ask you your 22nd birthday, most people don't have anything. What about your 21st? Most people can remember because you could drink at that point. It was an emotional spike. It was eventful. There's a lot of emotions tied to it. So you can remember your 21st, but you can't remember your 23rd, right? So it was not emotional. So I could remember the times that I had a girlfriend, or I got beat up, or I got screamed at, or abused, or promoted, like good and bad things. Those were the memories that come first, which alludes to the fact that emotions are tied directly to long-term memory.
Yeah.
And so those were what I was telling my story based on. The mundane day-to-day stuff, I didn't really remember much about my job back then, and I didn't remember brushing my teeth. And it really bothered me. It did. So for like 6 months after that interview, I started research how to get memories back. And it was rosemary. Remember, like rosemary essential oil is supposed to stimulate me. So I was dumping it on me all day long. I had bottles of it. Maybe it was a factor, but it sure didn't work. And I started remembering. I said I could remember the buzzer going off in the mornings that woke us up. So I was on a crew, and there was a bunch of guys. It was like living in a barracks, like in a military barracks. And I always say it was a prison without doors, without bars, but it was like that. A buzzer would go off, and we would go out. I would go out, and I was in like a pajama, and I would go to the end of the door, and we had to go into the shower. And I remembered that because it was emotionally terrible to wake up all the time. It was like very early in the morning, I wanted to sleep in, and it was like every day. So that emotion is what anchored that memory. So I would dwell on it, and I thought, how I did have to brush my teeth somewhere. What happened next? And then, so I would dwell on it, and all through the day, all day long, I would remember going to the door and then walking over to the shower. And I had a clear memory of that, but I didn't have anything beyond that. And I would dwell on it all day long. And I was almost obsessive, and nothing came. And then and I would get sleepy. So parting gifts Jason Rice called them parting gifts, that post-hypnotic suggestion, the hypnosis. So when you start to remember, triggers go off and you become sleepy or hungry or aroused, whatever. It's, pardon my saying it, but some people, and this is people I want to talk about, you start to remember your abduction experience and you get hungry or sexually aroused.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then minutes later, however, when you go, "Oh, well, what was I thinking about? I'll see what's on TV." And so that you just move away from the subject and never get your memories back. And I was working at it because I was still actively being asked to be on podcasts and YouTube shows. So I worked at it. Every time I got the blocker, I got sleepy, and that happened. It began to make me angry.
Mm.
And I thought, man, I can't remember a damn thing. And it's weird. I've had people tell me, one guy got a hold of me and said, "Tony, I can't read your book." And I said, "I know it's very traumatizing for a lot of people." And he's like, "No, you don't understand. I'm a he worked in a publishing house. He's like, I read books in days. He's like, I'm a reader. He's like, I read thousands of books, thousands of them. And I usually read a book like yours in a couple of days. And I read books all the time this is my, and I cannot read your book. Every time I read your book, I go to sleep."
Yes.
And I said, "I'm sorry to tell you that it probably means you know, most easily explained by you being involved in some way.
Yeah.
And he was aware of it, but he just, anyhow, so that's what I was going through. And what I found was I would get sleepy. So later in the day at 3 o'clock, if I thought about my shower and where I was brushing my teeth on Ceres, I would get sleepy and it would ruin my day. And so I thought, tomorrow morning, when I wake up, I'm going to give it 15 minutes until I get sleepy, and then I'm just not going to think about it for the rest of the day. And actually found that that seesaw action, remembering, searching for the memory, is like working a muscle, but it's your brain, so it's a different stress. And then not doing it actually is the action that lets your subconscious look up the memory. So I would think about it and then start to get sleepy and go, okay, that's it, and move on with my day. I'd have something ready to do there. Okay, now I'm going to do my paperwork from yesterday. And then later in the day, when I caught myself doing it again, I'd say, nope, not until tomorrow morning. Because I knew damn well when I was sitting having my cup of coffee in the morning that I was rested and there was no need for me to go back to sleep. And so I was talking myself out of it. And what happened was, if you think about a long-term memory, this goes for anybody at any long-term memory. If you dwell on it in the morning, first thing, when your mind is fresh, and then purposely ignore the curiosity for the rest of the day, it comes to you. It's just like remembering that old song. What was that song that time? And you go, man, it's on the tip of my tongue. And we sit there and we talk about that song from the last time we hung out years ago. What was that song on the radio? Remember we were dancing? Oh, well, it'll come to me. And as soon as you don't care about it and you wait, it'll be 5 minutes, or an hour, whatever it is. Oh my God, it was the police. It was Every Breath You Take. Remember? Now I remember, because it comes back to you
Yeah.
when you relax that muscle. And this is the same thing that I did. And after a while, I was like, oh my God, we had disposable toothbrushes. I remember they were disposable little plastic where we lined up and you ripped them and we threw them away. And I was like, oh my God. And then the ladies at the door, when we came back to the barracks, there were two ladies that wrote down or punched you into the system that you returned. And when my hair was long, they'd say, you need to go see the barber. He's right there. And that's when I'd get my hair cut. I was like, oh my God, like it worked. And so that exercise is what I taught to there's a memory course about it. It's very detailed and tells how to do it. But ultimately, that action of stress and then purposely ignoring it lets your subconscious index, lets it work it out. So that was what I found early on. And that works for people. That's worked for people that are, I don't want to say dwell on the bad stuff, but people that had, memories traumatic memories that they can't remember. They can't remember what happened. It was traumatic, and they could do that. And I always say, something there is real. Tell me what color the floor was. Tell me what wall the light switch was on. Do you remember? I remember being in a room and then this happened and so was with me. I go, tell me what the floor was. Was it carpet? Was it hard? What color was it? I don't know. Dwell on it tomorrow morning. Just pride, just breaking that open, that shell of around it that lets the rest of the memories be accessible freely. So as soon as you go, oh my God, it was a tile floor. It was red and white. And I go, now what was the ceiling like? What was the temperature like? Where'd you go after that? Where'd you go before that? And then once you break those memories down, then it's like a log jam or an ice, you break it and then you get access to the memories. So that's what I found. And I've seen a lot of people do it. And doing that exercise every day for 2 weeks, you'll get one. You'll get them. It's about 2 weeks.
Well, this is super valuable for anybody who's listening and is like, you know what, it wants to break through something. Because, I myself, I've been, wanting to recover something and I just figure, oh, well, it's gone. I don't remember it. But they do say that the subconscious is recording absolutely every detail, and
it's
so
in there.
You must be able to go back. So does this have anything to do with remote viewing, just out of curiosity or I mean,
Well, oddly enough, I remembered all the remote viewing that way too. From the early program that I was in was a remote viewing program. So, maybe So when we look at the science of how remote viewing works, I mean, that's interesting that you said that. I mean, I hadn't thought of it, but remote viewing seems to be not the viewer
Hmm.
looking at the target, the viewer accessing a subspace or a quantum mind that has knowledge of everything.
Right.
That is more in line with what we're seeing. So I always say it's like a periscope where you're looking outside of, we're in time space, we're in a 3D construct. And if you find the right brain waves, they collapse to the Planck distance exactly. And once they get outside the Planck distance, they have access to everything all at once, distance and future and past. And it seems to be like a database, like a mind that's not judgmental, or it's like a raw construct of all the data. And once you get into that right brainwaves, you have access to it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
maybe that's along those lines, like basically everything is there. Everything is recorded in that
Yeah.
outside of time space somewhere. I always think we're living in a big choose your own adventure book.
Right. Well, those are some of my childhood memories are those books. Those choose your own adventure books. Yeah. I used to
Yeah,
read all the possibilities, until I'd read the entire book. And that's one memory that I have from childhood, interestingly.
there we go. It's a
Hmm.
start. I think our lives are the same way. I think there are things that are always going to happen, and there are things that we have a choice over. And I think it's a blend of the both. I think there are things that are always going to happen no matter what choice you make, but I think you have free will. So, and
Yeah.
you probably agreed to those things before you got here on some level. You gave permission to the things that must always happen. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
my own personal belief, but without getting too far out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my view as well. I believe that everything is by agreement, at the soul level, we could say. So yeah, I'm really so maybe in a way like memory isn't as personal as we think it is, or the subconscious isn't as personal as we think it is. Maybe we're just accessing a universal mind that has access to everything, and because we each have an access to that universal mind, we each have a portal.
It's true. And what I've learned okay, so let's move away from that. I just want to let the listener know that, okay, the early program that I was in when I was taken, I was on Earth for a while, and the early program was a psychoenergetics and remote viewing research in Kern, California. And I went back and found the building, and I found the receipts off the Freedom of Information Act, and the three buildings were there exactly how I remember them. There's a documentary coming out in January about it. Um, what I've found since then, I took that knowledge. When I went there, I remembered even more. So when I went on the spot, I got more memories because I could smell the place and feel the humidity, and like it
Yes.
was tactile,
Yeah.
tactile memory. And I remembered the remote viewing stuff, and I started researching that, and I went, "Oh God, I know this." And we started doing it in our tier 3 group on Talks with Tony on my Patreon. And I thought, this is big. And I started another group for teaching remote viewing because there's a lot, it's fun. But since then, I've learned a lot. That group is really, I've learned far more than I've ever taught there. And it looks like there are no secrets
Hmm.
anyway. It looks a lot like our subconscious minds are fully aware of everything that everybody else does.
Yeah.
And because they're a grown up, it's a higher mind. It doesn't have an emotional fit about it. So
Right.
there are no secrets, and people that do things and think it's in secret to somebody else, it's because they've given you permission to do so.
Yes.
If you do something and get away with it, it's because they gave you permission. Their subconscious gave you permission to get away with it.
That's so true. That is so true. And I remember thinking, do you remember back in the old days before there was DNA, before there was forensic, there's this whole thing about forensic evidence now, and it keeps getting more and smaller, what they're able to find, what they're able to detect. And I remember many years ago when those forensic shows started, I found them fascinating. And I thought, the truth is everything is known. Everything is known. Everything leaves a trace. And all these shows are demonstrating is that we're starting to have technology that is showing us that everything leaves a trace. We couldn't see it before, but it was always there. And I think that's just a metaphor for the truth about reality. And the only reason that people find your story or stories of other people that I'm talking to in the gray space, far out fantastical, is because we don't have a model of reality that allows for, this multidimensional existence beyond time and space. We've been so reduced, and that's that's the hypnotic spell, right? The trance that everybody's been under and that we're waking up from now. We've got to talk about these things and realize that, it's like the old metaphor of there's a kind of snail that only sees, like, I don't know, I'm just making it up, 5 frames per second, right? And if we as humans see 100 frames per second and our perception is just more sophisticated, you could put that snail over there and put an apple in front of the snail. The snail sees the apple, but then you could theoretically go in and grab the apple out, and the snail, only seeing 5 frames per second, doesn't have a sophisticated enough perception to see what happened, right? They see there's an apple and then there's no apple.
It just
Right?
teleported away.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't see the hidden hand, right? The hand that comes in, that is slipping in between the veils. We've been in this kind of snail-like perception, and that's all changing now.
Well, that's a great way to explain that, and it's so true. And Plato tried, right, with the whole shadows and the cave thing.
Yeah.
He tried to tell us that. My big one that I'm hung up on that I tell people nowadays is our size.
Our
So
size.
our size in the universe. So Claire, in you might have been in one of the groups where I talked about it, but in relative position, when you think about all of the known universe, so everything that we can see with the James Webb or the Hubble, those telescopes, and all the astronomy, we can see the universe. We have Laniakea, the supercluster, and beyond that, we have this huge painting collage of astronomical knowledge that shows the universe is extremely big. For us to go to the next star is very big, right? So in that relationship to you, to the size, sorry, it's my dog, to the size of Claire, or more accurately, hang on a sec. Close the door. More accurately, a cubic meter, like your chair behind you, is probably like a 3 by 3 by 3. A cubic meter,
Hmm.
a little bigger than a human. How big in relative size do you think you are to all of the universe at once, to the smallest part of the universe? So for the size from you to be in the smallest measurement, where do you think you are on that scale?
Well, I mean, I'm infinitely small and infinitely infinite at the same time. That's how I feel it.
No, let's do the math. We're doing math here. This is physical stuff. So
Oh
on
gosh.
your scale from you to the size of the known universe is a 10 with 22 zeros. Okay?
Yeah.
The big. How many zeros do you think it is to get to the smallest distance, which is the Planck distance? It's the smallest increment. From the size of Claire to the smallest pixel of the universe, how big do you think how far apart do you think you are? You would think that the big universe, that you'd way over here on the scale. It's a 10 with 33 zeros. You're
Oh,
a massively huge object. A human being is a massive object on the
wow.
scale of the universe. There are galaxies inside you worth of atoms. It's absolutely tremendous. In fact, every living being on the planet, if we took the space away between their molecules, would be the size of a teaspoon.
Yeah.
So we are massive clouds of energy, is what we really are. We're clouds of electromagnetic energy, and we are very, 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 very big on the scale of what the universe is made of the stuff of the universe. And so when you think about that, and like you were saying, where you're at, we put out a lot of energy,
Mm,
and we're self-aware, not like most of the not like the wall around by you. So we're big things, and they have taught us that we're small.
that's right.
So they feed that narrative that, oh, you can't get there, it's too far away. You can't do that, the world's too big, and this is too big, and it's just you. What difference are you going to make? You are a universe of energy walking around. Like, it's when I really ingested that,
Yes.
which wasn't long ago.
Yeah.
Wasn't that long? When I really ingested that, it changed my whole perspective on a lot of things. I thought, I'm going, wow, there's life, there's galaxies inside you of
Inside
energy.
me. Yes, yes. I'm right there with you, Tony. And that was a recent revelation or, inner standing for me as well, like in the last year. And it does change your perspective, and my obsession is fractal compression, right? I'm like, oh, we're a full universal fractal. The entire universe is within us. And that is what allows us to access infinite energy source, right? So, but more than on an intellectual level of understanding, I'm trying to feel what that means. I saw some video on Instagram a while back. A woman who had lost her father, and he was cremated, and she took some of the ash and put it under a microscope. And when you look at the images, it looks exactly like our images of space.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It was so moving, And to me, that was just a poetic demonstration because we're constantly seeing that we're both infinitely small and infinitely vast. That if you go inside the smallest object, you end up coming back out into infinity. It's mind bending to
Well,
contemplate.
it also gives you a context of what you really are. Like, we're not just a speck of meaninglessness.
Yes. Can I ask you about something that you mentioned in your book early on, where they sort of aspirated your consciousness? They said, we need to borrow your consciousness, right? And when you woke up or next, became aware, they told you were a clone, right? You didn't remember anything, right?
Mhm.
This is a topic that I'm like going down the rabbit hole the last couple of months about clones, because that was one of those things that I was like, la, 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 before. It's like, I can't handle that yet, but I started looking into it because of a friend of mine who is, very clear about, being aware of clones. And so I said, tell me more. How should I start researching this? I, I'm fascinated to know what you know about clones, about, the ability to make clones. Lots of people are now saying that people on the world stage are clones, that, entertainers are cloned, that there's even some of them have said it themselves, what's the deal with that?
Oh, it's easy. It's not easily said. I mean, from my own experience, I remembered them calling me that. So I was abducted. They put me in a room. They asked me questions. They did a test, like a biopsy. Like, they poked me and did a test, and they had to wait for the results to see if I had the right genetics. They said that's what they told me, and I'm talking about ETs,
Hmm.
in a room with ETs, and they said, we want to borrow your consciousness. That was the term they used. And so I'm a kid. I didn't know anything about that. Uh, Put me on a table, did a procedure. I lost consciousness, and I woke up in Inyo Kern. I could barely talk. There were humans there. I was in a portable with other kids in a medical, you know, and the doctor came and gave me a physical examination, did the reflex test, checked my heart rate and everything, standard. And he said, do you remember where you came from? And I said, no. He said, do you remember your mom and dad? I said, no. I had no memory I had complete amnesia. And so I was 10 and I had no memory of growing to 10. And he said, well, that's because you're a clone. And what's a clone? I didn't know what that was either. So boom. And from that moment, I lived for 20 years in the program in Inyokern. I went back and forth to Seattle. I went to Peru. And then after a period of years, they put me on the moon and into space. And I ended up living on a colony inside the planetoid Ceres. That's my testimony.
Yeah.
At the end of it, they put me back. And all the memories of those 20 years, I woke up all of a sudden back in my original body with the memories back of mom and dad and growing to 10, and then not having those. And when I think about it, it's like my consciousness went to a clone and got that experience. And then they put the clone back in time and put your consciousness back in the original body and then kill it.
Kill the clone.
And yeah, they just kill it. And that way, all those memories are gone, and I still have because I thought, how did they put my memories back? If it was just me, one person, and they
Right.
took the memories out, how do they put them back? Like, that doesn't seem, and I thought, wow, it might have been cloning. But then the other thing that led me down that road were the people that I was working with. Because one of the telltale signs, I, about 60% of the people, and a few thousand people I've done consults with, about 60% of them, when I asked them, when did it start? What was the event, the intake into the program? So that's
Mm.
what happened to me. I was 10, it was April of 82. There was the intake. I was abducted, and that's what happened. And my life changed. And what I found was that after that moment, when I came back, I was different. And so my grades changed, my behavior changed, my friends changed, my relationship with my parents changed, my relationship with my sister. Everything changed about me because the experience. And I started asking people, did your life change? And then the other thing was I was never really emotionally all there for that time. So from 10 till 30 till about 28, um, I wasn't all there. I really had a breathtaking emotion. Even my friends, my best friends, they were like, Tony, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, man. Like when I was like 17 years old, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's wrong. And they're like, yeah, because you have it together, but you don't. And but all of a sudden, at the end of the 20 years, it went away.
What went
And
away?
the emotional problems.
Oh, okay.
And so I started asking people, what happened when you on your intake event? And when was that? And they would say, whatever, it was 1990. And right around the springtime of 90, I know they took me. And I was like, what happened to your life? And they go, well, it fell apart. And then in my mind, I add 20 years to it. And I say, well, tell me what happened in 2010. And most of the time they go, how'd you know that? What? Because I shock them with, what happened in 2010 then? And they go, how'd you know that? Because my life changed at the end when I was done. So think about consciousness wise, you're one solid consciousness,
Mm.
and now you're two. And so each of them is a little bit less. And that's exactly what it felt like.
Mm.
So for one example, I'll give you some TMI personal thing. I just didn't have the emotions. I could never keep a girlfriend for that in my 20, like after that. I was just always emotionally upset, super insecure, and just not, you know what I mean, not emotionally developed. I was smart and, you know, seemingly getting by in life. And I would date girls. And then later on, a guy in your late 20s, it's like it's easy to date, right? So I would date girls, but it never lasted. It was just I just didn't know what was wrong with me. I just had some kind of emotional barrier that made me unable to bond. And almost exactly to the 20 years after that, about 6 months later, I met my wife. I stayed married for 23 years after that. It was overnight. It was like I was abducted. You add 20 years to that. And a few months after that, I had my emotional stability back. My consciousness was whole.
Mm.
And I find that with people, I say, well, what happened? And one girl, one time it was so black and white, you know, and like I said, I'm just making up the dates. I said, what happened in 1990? and she was taken. I said, what happened in 2010? She goes, that's weird because, I immediately divorced my husband who was really abusive, and I drove, but I just all of a sudden just drove across country, finished my degree, and started working, and like my whole life changed immediately. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a telltale sign. And I see that correlation in about 60% of the people that I worked with. So when we talk about cloning somebody, clearly there's a consciousness, like a dilution, like the
Uh-huh.
consciousness is diluted between them. So one whole person, a psych, and I don't even know what aspects you would attribute it to, the emotional aspect or the mental aspect or whatever. Um, IQ, if there's an IQ deficit there, I don't know exactly how I would measure it, but there is a real phenomenon from people that claim to go through these programs, be cloned, where they become lesser during the time of the clone being alive. And certainly
Wow.
that was the case.
But presumably you're in a there's a loop, right? Because if you were 8 years old, you said when you're 9 years
10,
old?
10.
10. Okay. So if you're 10 years old, you go to sleep one night, that's when they take you, that's the event, right? Then they aspirate your consciousness and put it into a clone. That clone has a life for 20 years and comes back to the same moment, basically, more or less, as the abduction moment, right? So
Mhm.
your 10-year-old self now has, whether it's accessible or not, memories of a life that was lived, right? But is back in time at the moment of the event, at the moment of abduction, and continuing life. So then so 20 years after that, so if we come back from that time loop and then 20 years go by in this incarnation on the planet, who doesn't remember anything about the 20 years space program or whatever it was you got to do, right? Is it like there's some kind of echo or reverberation? Because those are two different experiences. There's the lived experience of the clone, presumably, and then there's the lived experience of the original who doesn't remember what the clone did. But somehow at the 20-year mark, there's like
Well,
a
the clone dies.
oh,
The clone is dead after that 20-year mark.
oh, that's why.
So the clone is dead at that point. It's done. It doesn't exist. And so I remember asking this to the ET. I said, why not 50 years? Why not longer? Why 20? Why not 10 years? And he said he said, not only you, but most species, there's a risk of being damaged.
Ah,
So he's like, some species can do it longer, but we just cap it at 20 years. Because if you went for 25, you could go back and have a mental problem forever. You could be,
I
so
see.
they just made a law and it's capped at 20. And
Okay.
so because it could be a residual, like, and there is, and to be fair, I mean, I was like devastated. I was not the next morning I was abducted. I did the math and I went back through the weather reports and my old school records. And it was April 15th, 1982. The night of. I was abducted. When I woke up on April 16th, Friday, April 16th, 1982, I was a different person. I was not the same kid. Even my dad said, something happened to you. That later that summer, my dad was like, I want my son back. Something happened to you. He's like, you're not the same. And I was a completely different person because of because I experienced the 20 years first
Yeah.
and then went back but I'm saying during that time when both of them are alive simultaneously, one was in Seattle. I could have met myself theoretically. Um, but during that time it's like you're sharing it.
Right. Okay. Okay. Because sorry, I'm just trying to understand my mind, my 3D mind is trying to trying to get it around this.
Most people are confused, find this confusing. Yes.
Yeah, right. Like so in the 20 years, the 20 years are going on simultaneously with you growing up. It's not actually out of time.
No, there were two of
Oh.
me. I could stand in the room with myself. It wasn't a lot of people are thinking like, oh, you were astrally taken or you were dreaming it or it's a past life or it's in the future. No, they took me. There were two of me. One of them went and worked in their service and was free labor for them. And the other one got shifted out of my lifestyle. Like I changed it as a person. And then when they put me back, my life kind of got back on track.
Wow.
And,
Okay.
you know, and like I said, a few thousand people that I've worked with since then that have told me the same thing. Many of them have had pretty much the same experience, the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard this enough times from people that I've chatted with that, yeah, it starts to, you start to understand it, I guess, you start to accept it. Um,
Well, and consciousness in general is very deficient in our medical research. So, and we all know they officially, academia officially says that animals don't have consciousness.
yeah.
You're telling me that my dog doesn't have consciousness, that it doesn't have a personality compared to another dog, that it's just an automaton. Like, I can't believe that they could deduce, like, it's mind blowing to me that, and why? Because the same way that many of the other sciences are blocked. So there are many people in the insiders into the programs that say that, all of our science has been locked up away from us. So they don't have the ability to make the discoveries
Yeah,
that
well,
would unlock what I'm talking about having gone through.
Well, I mean, yeah, look at everything that's at stake. I mean, that's why I've been so obsessed with disclosure. It's not for me. It's not about the aliens. It's not about the advanced technology. Even though I can't wait for us to be able to benefit from organic technologies that are advanced, because I know we have access to that. It's not about infinite energy, although that is amazing too. It's not about the fact that we've been in one paradigm where we've been told that we're nothing, that we're small, that we're deficient, that we are inferior, and that's the opposite of the truth. It's not about all of those things, even. To me, it's about who we really are, what our capacities truly are, the nature of reality itself, which has been definitely curated and twisted and delivered to us, packaged in a certain way that we've just grown up with all of the inside this box, and have no idea who we really are and what we're here for. So, I mean, to me, all of the different threads of disclosure are fascinating. Yeah, I want to know about clones. I want to know about secret space program. I want to know about interdimensional beings. I want to know about what's actually been going on the planet, to fund all of these black projects. I want to know all the details of all the different threads, but for me, they're all part of a big tapestry, that's the wool that's been, over our eyes. And there's a reason for that. It's not random, That is what is fascinating to me about disclosure. That's why I can't get enough of talking to people who are coming at it from different perspectives, because I want to remember. I want to remember who we are, why we're here.
Wow. Um, this is a great discussion when you think about it. Uh, yeah, the truth is, after all that I've after all that I've disclosed, and then going on the road and meeting other people. So going and doing all that, like, I've learned a lot. And I think that people just don't look into a context of where we're at in the universe. Most people are, sad to say, but most people only see themselves and the shopping center.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And they don't really have a care about what goes on for other people or care what goes on above. And we're very, very, very programmed nowadays, especially in the political sense.
Yeah.
So people aren't really setting themselves free. A lot of people just don't have curiosity as one of their primary traits, which is fine. But when you leave it up to somebody else, it's been perturbed, and I think it's ran amok. I think that the official lies that they've given us all throughout history have really ran amok in the last 50 years. Like they really have gone over a cliff. And people are starting to be like, wow, wait a minute. Like we're starting to, we're all communicating. We couldn't do shows like this, 20 years ago.
Mm-mm.
I'm thinking of a way to word the point that I'm trying to make here. I want to be careful about the way I say it. What I've learned is that where I'm coming at it from, like with all the stuff that I do now, the challenge that I think that faces us all is to undo the programming.
Yeah.
So it's not about new programming. It's not about learning a new fact. Everybody knows there's aliens. It's not, I mean, really, I think anybody that believes that we're alone in the universe is a very small minority at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't need that. We need to understand how many things have a control over our conscious mind.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. And I mean, I've been researching it. I started an audio company that does programming for positive things,
Yeah. So
why
share
not program
more.
us to do things that we want?
Yeah, yeah, I would love it if you could share more about that and your tinkering, I mean, that's to put it mildly, because yeah, I've got a number of your audio meditations.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just made the stress one. I finished the stress shield this morning. I
Okay.
gotta tell you, I was listening to it I had to change. There's a few changes I want to make still. So I was giving it a proofread this morning. And I realized that I'm not stressed at all. I'm like, I realized that I'm the most laid back I've been in weeks right now after this. So it works. And all I'm doing, I learned it all from the people I met. So I met, Elena Danan. I've met Randy Kramer. I've met people in the film industry from, whistleblowers, and Dan Winter from what is this website? Plankfire.com.
Hmm.
And, you just, Dan Willis, and you shoot the breeze with these people that have careers, and you get the cliff notes of things to research, and go home and research and do my homework. And I thought, oh, wow, I could do it. And then from my lens of perspective, I go, I would love to build one of these to help me because I have these problems. And once I started down that road, I've always wanted, okay, let me back up a little bit. I was asked at a conference three years ago. I was asked to go to a conference, a tech conference, and present in front of investors and research scientists and research in San Jose, in Silicon Valley, and tell my story about the secrets, my experience being abducted in the secret space program, and see if there were any technologies that I remembered that I could inspire a room full of inventors. And I went there and presented, and I talked about the education. So they put me to school up there. I had to be trained. When I went from one job to another, I was in a space colony. And when I was no good, when my job dried up, they would take me and put me into not a real school, like the way we think about it, but a system that would assess you and retrain you. And I said, we could do that. I think it's faster. I think it's a faster method of learning. And what was the other one? Welding. I ran auto, and that's actually real now. So what I called out 10 years ago, I had no idea, but it's actually real. They have auto welders now that you play, and it's exactly like I remember. It's crazy. And those
so
are
these
real.
have appeared on the scene here now, you're saying?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yep. And battery tools, But anyhow, I presented on that and a few other things that we did up there. And nobody cared. They wanted free energy. Everybody in the room wanted gravity and free energy. They didn't care about anything else that I was saying. They were like, whatever. And I presented a month later at a separate conference, and I still had the slides in my presentation. And I was finishing up, and I said, oh, by the way, I did this, and there's the school system, and our school's terrible. When you look at the performance of the public school system and the test results of children that graduate, the trend is grim.
It's just an indoctrination system, basically.
It's grim. It's a very grim thing. And it's getting and progressively getting worse. Still, it's eroding fast.
Yeah.
And I said, this is something we could do. And people approached me and said, Tony, I'll give you money, do it. And I'm like, okay. And I started researching into it. It's an adaptive learning company. And I still am working on it. The guys are really slow. I have guys, we're building an in-house media generating AI. It's its own AI. And it'll generate media. Then a human proofs it and then assembles an adaptive module, learning a course, an adaptive course. So the premise is that not everybody ingest information the same. I can't stand watching a video. I really, an instructional video, I wanna rip my hair out. I just can't do it. I'd rather read a book.
Ah.
Some people are the opposite, and they can't read a book. They need to watch it in a video and show me how it's done.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I want to read it and then do it as I'm reading, kind of thing. And so the ingestion of information is media dependent. Some people don't want words or a movie; they just want a picture. If you want to break it down into those kinds of media. So this is a school system that feeds you media, and then when you get something wrong, it feeds you a different media. And you get that wrong, it feeds you a different one. And then over time, it knows which one you prefer, and it just feeds you that. So that's kind of what it is. That's a simplified version.
Right.
It starts with a binaural tone. So ETs put me in school, and I'd sit down at my desk, and I had to listen to a binaural tone for 5 minutes. And so that was the ground one. When I got the investment money, that was the first thing I had to research was the binaurals. And how do you make them? And I got the software and all that. And then when Dan Winter explained his phase conjugate pump wave to me and how it perceives to harmonics and remote viewing, brain waves to remote viewing, when I put all that together, I thought, I can change the harmonics and the binaurals. That's what nobody's doing. The solfeggio frequencies, the healing frequency, the 20, 40 hertz, they're all off a little bit. And so Dan gave me the real, plankfire.com, he gave me the real cascade, and it really does make a difference. Some frequencies feel like fingernails on a chalkboard, and some feel silky smooth. And what happens is if you find the right frequency for the brainwave entrainment, it's far more effective. And that's what these are. So I went, oh my God, this is amazing. I got to do this. And I thought, what if I did a little subliminal message in there to tell you that you're great? Like, what if I did a successful one for people? Because that's the number one thing that people want is make money, wealth, and abundance, right? When you make a guided meditation thing, and it's not a guided meditation. And so we took the tracks and said, it's all going to work out. What if it works out? If not you, then who? Things like that, little subliminal. And I just turned the volume down to where you could barely hear the whispers in the early ones. And then I was researching and I found something called phase canceling subliminals. And you can crank those up. And now it's loud. So it's a very loud thing. And I take these scripts and put the script in there. And then while I'm saying certain things in the script, the brainwave entrainment goes in and out of different brainwave states with the binaurals and isochronics and bilaterals with white noise and pink noise and then a music score so you can stomach the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're very effective and people have been really raved about them. So I thought this is just the audio media. This is just only the audio. We have an AI that's going to generate the flashcard, the cue cards, and the voice and picture, like moving pictures, and then some video. We're up to 8 seconds in video in our AI. And it's probably still 3 to 6 months out at this point. And it's been a lot of work. These guys are really helping me out because the first quote I got was like $80 million and I don't have that. So they're helping me out, and these guys, and they're really good. So we're building that. But I started Scion.com. It's just based off the audio technology that I had uncovered in researching for like a space school with the different media in it. So just the audio one spawned a side company that is very, very effective so far. And the morality is that they're using this again. It dawns on, if you think about what I can do with this.
That's exactly what I was going to say and ask too, right? Because presumably we have been exposed to mind control frequencies for our entire lives, and we don't even realize. I mean, I started becoming aware. Could hear the tones and stuff like that, and I was like, "What is going on?" You know, and but it makes total sense. You know, I mean, those frequencies are being diffused all the time, and we know that directed energy weaponry exists, and so if they can focus frequencies at us to keep us dull, anxious, compliant, all of that, then we need something to. I mean, I personally, I feel like all of that is going to be shifting in the next year and a half or so. But anyway, we need to counteract the effects of those disempowering technologies that we have been subjected to.
Some of the things I built, absolutely, and I think people don't realize the level of it, of how sophisticated mind control is through your media. You're not scrolling what you liked. So you know, if they want you to, you know, you look like, well, if I like this video, they'll send me more of these videos, and that's what I'm scrolling through. That's not the case. They give you 2 or 3 videos, and you don't have a choice. One of them, they're going to give you these videos until you like one of them, and that's their excuse to feed you with the rest of them that are going to be really weird. And bend you into how you have a talk with people. You even said earlier, I saw an Instagram video.
Yeah.
A lot of time, especially if you're talking about politics right now, you're not having a talk with that person. You're having a talk with their Instagram feed.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about a lot of people don't follow the news. They don't read about the news. They don't have a political opinion. They have no idea about the policies or what the laws get passed. They don't care, because they have their own hands full in their life, and you're talking politically to their Instagram feed, not them. And so, and then people get heated because it's a frustration. Your phone watches where you're looking.
Oh yeah, it tracks your eyes.
Eye tracking is everywhere. It's super easy. That was the first software company I worked with. They were like, "Yeah, we can do eye tracking. That's easy." They're looking at what you like in the picture, so you don't have to like the video. You can just look at the basketball in the corner, and in 5 videos from now, you're going to get a basketball one. So that, and then the phase canceling, like I said, the sublims, you cannot hear them, and they're loud. They're actually quite loud. Like, I can make the speaker crackle, and you can't hear the sound. Just the speaker's crackling for no reason. If I crank up the gains really high, yes.
Right. Right.
But you are hearing it. You just can't physically, you just don't consciously hear it.
Right.
And these are all over the place, and they're highly effective. What I found was, when I put a phase canceling subliminal with a little song, a jingle, and put it out there, those are the ones that get played. And I tell people flat out, I'm using subliminals, and I'm not doing them with some kind of immoral thing.
Of course.
But those are the ones people can't get enough of. I want to see it again, play it again. You know, friends come over, I go, look at this video I made. And they go, oh, play that again. I'm like, okay, play it again. Because you're trying to sort out what it told you that you don't consciously register, but you know there's more to it. And that's the stuff you can't get, you know, that sugary video that you can't get enough of. It's because it's got subliminal content in it. The moral end around that I'm going to do, we're doing a remake on Scion.com. I hired a marketing team, and we're going to we have a whole new suite coming out. We're doing hypnosis, deprogrammer. We're making a deprogrammer series to clean slate you from
that is great.
From all the programming you've got your whole life, or if you had a bad hypnosis or whatever it is, to have a clean slate, to like a deprogram. I'd like to think of a better name for it, but we haven't yet. Right now it's called the Deprogram series. But because the subliminals, if you are aware of the script, they're far less effective.
Right, exactly.
So how do I tell you the script and have you not know it so that it's super effective and you trust me? Right? So you have to just trust me that this is going in. So what I'm doing is making a page on the site that will have instructions and say, look, if you are listening to this product with a subliminal in it and you have doubt, you can have a loved one look on the page and read it for you. And that way you maintain the no knowledge of what's in it. And you can have somebody that you trust read it and say that, because they know you intimately and go, well, she doesn't like apples or she doesn't like oranges, and you're talking about oranges all the time. So don't listen to that one. So I just want to do it because morally, it really is a slippery slope. Like I'm to the point in my life where I'm starting to do things where it's actually, is it beneficial to tell everybody everything, And you see where and we know that the people that are running the world don't have moral compunction for lying to us or leading us to do the wrong thing. So this is the technology they've been using since the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's another thing, right? That people need to get their heads around is how long this has been going on. When we're talking about disclosure. Now, look, I'm glad that documentary came out recently, The Age of Disclosure. I'm glad that came out. But the repeated argument was, disclosure hasn't happened because we're, people, for them to get their minds around the fact that we're not alone. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's just an excuse. This has been going on for 80 years, just, like this last chapter for 80 years, but it's really been going on for thousands and thousands of years.
Children are born expecting ETs. Children don't have a problem. Like, we're ready for the truth. The tired excuse that we're not ready is just not true.
No, it's
everybody already knows there's ETs out there. Like, this is something at core in your soul that like somebody that grew up on an island in ancient times, they know that there's land out there elsewhere. They know it. And whether the remote viewing aspect of it or just the fact that your soul has knowledge, like we know there's worlds out there with people on them. And so that tired excuse it's just so tired. It's just so, how did they talk us into even believing any of it? It's so preposterous. When you really think about it and you look at the night sky, it's so preposterous what they've sold us.
It's ludicrous. It's literally, well, and I can't look at the moon anymore the same way. I just can't. I know too much now. I can't hear about the moon landing anymore. I'm like, no, no, no. And it's funny because you're like, how did I ever buy that? How did I ever? And it's not even that you're like, oh yes, that makes sense. It's just you've heard it your whole life. It's hypnotic, right? They just repeat the same things over and over again, and you just don't question it unless you have a reason to question it, right? But once you wake up to things, you just can't go back. You just don't see things the same way anymore. You can't. It's what you said right at the beginning of our conversation.
It's true. Well, there's the inclusion factor. I always tell people, like, look, you should all get into astronomy. I did it for years, my own telescopes, and go out my backyard and look with your own eyes through a piece of glass that doesn't have a digital thing to it and look up. And most people don't, and they think they're falling for things. I think a basic knowledge of astronomy, joining an astronomy club for a year would squash a lot of ignorance in the world of what we deal with today.
Do you have a telescope now?
Yeah, a little tiny one. But
Yeah.
I did all that years ago, and I was like, when I lived in Hawaii, it was a very good view.
Yeah.
And then I moved around a bunch. I've been moving a bunch. That's a long story, but no, I did it for a while, and I participated in the University of Hawaii, the Institute for Astronomy. They had a side, like a public astronomy club, and I was in that. And I was able to see some of the bigger telescopes and actually participate in watch the development of stuff that matters today,
Yes.
But just knowing how it works. So astronomy is really good for for dispelling things like the flat Earth, like the sky is a big dome.
Yeah.
If you need to dispel that, it's easy with a couple telescopes to do.
Right.
And,
Right.
but
What about Three-Eye Atlas? Do you have a take on that?
Three-Eye Atlas is great for the algorithms. So you should put that in the title of this episode. Claire and Tony talk about Three-Eye Atlas.
For 2 seconds.
In 2 seconds. Yeah, and well, it'll bump you up in the algorithm, so it's a hot spot.
Right. Right.
We remote viewed it a couple times and got some ambiguous, it's not just a rock. I don't think it's just a rock.
Mm-hmm.
But the persona of Three Eye Atlas has been inflated.
Mm.
Avi Loeb got a wonderful career from Oumuamua when it came through,
Mhm.
and he got on all the shocking shows, and he probably made a significant amount of money. And when Three Eye Atlas came, he really pumped. It could be, they always open it with it could be this. And so that it's like a tag, it's a gotcha. And so they're over marketing it, is what it is. The reality is that we didn't start looking for these objects until 2010. So we were not looking at the entire night sky before 2010 at all. We were looking at a thumb size of the sky at any given moment. And so
Right.
these objects flew by all the time. And now, since 2010, and then they got the rest of it online by like 2017, now they can see the whole sky at once. Like they
Yeah.
now we have
There's
telescopes that can
this,
see the entire sphere around the Earth at once, and they can see these objects now. And so now we've got three or four, extra stellar objects that have come through. So we're gonna get more of them. It's a natural thing. Three Atlas is weird, but they've sensationalized it, and then people have piled on and turned it into this word salad of, you know, and then maybe who knows if they're right. Like I don't, I on one hand I want to fight back against the speculative part of this community where people just take mushrooms and then speculate that that's what's going on, and then they make a YouTube about it, or people, you know what I mean? Like I want to fight back against that, but
yeah.
also they could be right.
Mm.
So I'm not that guy. I've always said that I'm not a researcher in that term. I'm not here to confirm or deny somebody else's info, but we've certainly seen the BS get deep around the Three Eye Atlas thing.
Well, I love what you said, that these objects go through all the time and that's normal, right? And that actually the planet is we're surrounded by craft, we're surrounded by vessels. That's normal.
Mhm.
That we've been living in a bubble of abnormality, and now we're starting to realize, oh, actually, there's a whole reality. There's an understanding, a real understanding of reality would explain a lot of things that many people scoff at, or can't handle. But it's starting to happen, and maybe Three Eye Atlas is just one of those ways that people are starting to get used to the idea that well, there's a lot more going on than they told you, and it has
Yeah,
been
it's
that way forever.
the mainstream breaking it to people that otherwise didn't care, never cared less about looking up. The reality is that when you look up into the sky, something like, I mean, this is me telling you this. There's not an official thing. This is Tony. Not, I don't like, I can't look this up in a textbook for you, but the reality is that something like 7 out of 10 stars up there has an Earth around it.
Hmm.
So when you look up into the sky and you think about an Earth with the people on it, on 7 out of 10 of them, we can see about 3,000 stars with our naked eye. That's all we can see. And beyond that, there's trillions and trillions of them. And so that's how many the universe is teeming with intelligent life. And that's what they're not telling us. Like, when you really look at it and boil it down, it's as if we're on an island and they've kept us in the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
And they come to the island and say, "What did you guys dig up my stuff?" We're giving them, whatever it is, some resource. And they go, "Okay, we'll see you later. This is cool, and we're going to take some of and you come with us. Goodbye." And we're stuck on this island. They're like, "Oh, there's nothing out there. You'll fall off the edge. Don't make a boat. Just us. We know. See you later." And it's a
Yeah.
big secret. They sneak in at night, and then the rest of the world is going on with cities and airplanes and trains and computers. All that's going on around this, but the people on the island are stuck in the Stone Ages, and they keep lying to them, telling them, for exploitation. And I think
Yes.
that's really the accurate metaphor for the Earth. That's what we are. We are on an island around metropolises of teeming with life, billions of people, and the Earth is this little island out at sea that nobody's allowed to go to. And they come here and they tell us they take what they want and leave. And that's alien abduction, and that's why the secret. It's not because people aren't ready for it.
Mhm.
Think about it, a little kid. You can tell a kid anything. They believe in Santa. They believe in all kinds of dragons and everything. They People are ready. There's not going to be fighting back against changing the status quo. Someone said that one of the truths they would release is that the ETs wrote the religions,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the biggie.
Yeah.
That if they came down and disclosed, they'd have to say like, "Look, they wrote the religion so that we'd stop killing each other," which I don't think that worked good.
Well, maybe they wrote the religions to keep control and to harvest energy
Yeah, true. Well,
through
control, yeah,
worship.
control for sure. And that makes a lot of sense, but I think even the most religious people would not abandon their faith, even if they had to abandon the religion, for
Mm.
one. And I think that most people could handle it, and there wouldn't be mass suicide. I don't think that there would be some kind of catastrophe. I think people are resilient and roll with the punches. And for them to say this is just an excuse for them to continue to exploit us.
Yeah, I completely feel that. And again, I'm always asking the question, well, why? Why has this planet been on such a lockdown? Why have we been kept so much in ignorance? Why have we been reset so many times? Why has our memory been wiped over and over again? Why have we, have been subjected to this level of perceptual manipulation and control? Well, it's not because we're weak and inferior.
No.
It's
Right.
because of
We have value.
who we really are. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we have
and
great
what we
value.
represent in terms of, yeah, great value, as you say, but it's our spiritual power. It's for me, it's that, it's the universal fractal aspect of things. We have more power in us. We have the power of the entire universe in this incarnational fractal vessel. Nobody else has it. And that's why we're so exploitable, right? And that's why we've been just programmed and tortured and tormented over eons and eons of time to exploit and control us. And yeah, disclosure for me is wake up to who you really are. And all of this, you pull one thread and this whole sweater unravels. That's what the truth reveals is, who we are, why we're here, what we came
I've
for.
had I've had people I don't know, I've had other testimonies that I just didn't think were genuine. And I say, well, maybe they are. I don't know everything, right? And then other people tell me that my testimony is not genuine, which I don't blame you. Um, I think that I'm ever just did this in the intention of offering one shred of facet of the stone that we're trying to see. And I think that it all has to work for any one person's to work. The truth. It has to come together. And so we see things, and there definitely has been a counter push into the information as well. Like they try to muck up the water so and it's worked
Yeah.
greatly. But I've been able to find a ton of info, a ton of evidence that supports being taken and going into a secret space program, and presented the evidence many times. And so I stand by that. I would never come on here and talk to you and embarrass myself if I were making this up. You know what I mean? If I didn't have something to support me,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, I do have a list of things that support what I remember over the years I've discovered, and it still continues to grow too, actually.
Well, it must, right? All will be revealed, and I encourage everybody who's listening to go to Tony's website, go to the also to Scion, right? Well, we'll put all the links obviously in the show notes, and
Thanks.
read your book because it's a absolutely riveting read. I can't. I'm gonna finish it in 36 hours, but it's
It's not a super long book either, but yeah.
well, I've got the Kindle version right now, so I don't know how long it is, but I'm like, wow, I just can't get enough of truth. To me, I think, we have a capacity to recognize the vibration of truth when we hear it. And I'm not saying that, you have all the answers, that you remember everything that but there is the authenticity of your voice and your presence. And I always encourage people to just, hold a space, find spaciousness enough within to listen to the testimonies of people who've been through a hell of a lot and have had the courage to come forward. And, and I don't know, we didn't talk about this, but I mean, did you have threats against you when you started to talk, or did you have...
Honestly, in the early days, not so much. It's only been recently since I really got to the core of some things. When I went to Inyokern physically is when it really, the resistance really stopped. I had, wait, I'm adjusting myself here. I had resistance in the beginning. I had people contact me saying they were going to sue me, and I had people from Hollywood say, "Look, that was in our movie. You're stealing our movie intellectual property. We're going to sue you." And I thought, wow, what a brilliant way to shut people up, is to
Yeah.
make a movie about it first, that they know it's real. And then when somebody remembers it and comes out and talks about it, it's copyrighted. And so that happened in the beginning. And I was greatly attacked. The first 2 years, really, I didn't want to quit my day job at all, because I was attacked a lot, and I just was a way of life. And I bore the brunt of it. But after 4 or 5, it just kept growing. And I kept researching. I was just dying to prove it. And the more evidence I found, the more people listened. When I found that it was in 2020, August of 2020, when NASA confirmed the salt spots on Ceres, and I called that out in 2016.
Oh, wow.
So in 2016, they said, "What is this? What are the white spots on Ceres?" I said, "It's salt." I remember we flew over it. I remember it. It's a geyser. A geyser goes off, and then salt. The water evaporates and the salt snows back down. And we flew over it when it happened, and it was beautiful. I had that memory the whole time. Even before I got my memories back, I remembered that. And I said, "It's salt." And then the Dawn probe went there and analyzed it some months later, and they said it's sulfur and a bunch of other chemicals, anything but salt. And I said, Dr. Salas said, "Do you want to retract your statement before they confirm?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I don't care what they say. If there's one thing I remember about any of that 20 years, those are salt deposits." And then in August of 2020, Dawn probe went finally to a much lower orbit around Ceres and got a spectral analysis, and it was briny salt. Wow. So they had actually theorized that it was salt in the beginning, but they originally said, and it's funny, I can't find the article anymore. They took it down. Where NASA, they were saying it was sulfur and it was all these other things, compounds. And maybe it's in my email. But it was confirmation. And when I did that, when that happened, and then the book came out, it was really like it gained steam,
Yeah.
But now, since I went to Inyokern, I physically went there and wrote the book Beyond Sight. And that's when I had actually the apparatus come after me. Like the actual programs have started with me. So this last year has been bumpy. I had to relocate.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I don't know if you want to say anything about it, but when you and I met at GSIG briefly, I remember you said, you were in Sedona at the time.
Yes.
And you said something about, I just found out, they got me in a fake city, was surrounded by fake people, and,
Yes.
and
I looked back, it was a psychological operation. I don't want to talk about it a whole lot, name names or anything, but ultimately it was a psychological operation, and they put a bunch of people injected into my life. And when the time came, they were all going to pull the rug out. And then I don't know what the goal was, because I caught it before it happened.
How
But
did
when
you
I looked
catch it?
back, they slipped up.
Okay.
They slipped up, and I am a remote viewing teacher. So, I mean, to put it mildly, I have the ability to see things in a scientific manner that is high probability. And so I began when I started to see that I was in a construct. Even the house I was in was doing things on its own. And like I bought a bug sensor, and they were in all the light switches, and the fuse box was locked. I couldn't get to the fuse box to kill it, to open the panels, to look at anything. It was a lot of weirdness. I'm Claire, we can do another couple hours of me just telling you what Sedona was like.
I would love to do that. Maybe we can do that another time
Maybe.
if you're up for it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Well,
very
you're
interested.
very charming to talk to. So,
Oh, thank you.
but in Sedona, once I caught it, I started looking back. The other thing was that I had pictures in my phone, and there were people that were, like I said, they insert people in your life, and they come up and tell you how awesome you are, and they love you, and I want to help you. And also, I'm a guy that professionally does exactly what you need to done. Oh, what a coincidence! Here,
Mm.
call me. And so you start working with people, and they slowly put these people around you. And then the plan was to just pull the rug out from under you and go, you know what? Forget it. I don't want to do any of this anymore. Like it seems like that was the goal. And when I caught a few of them, and I really started thinking about it, and then I did my own little checks. I went, and then one of them slipped up and kind of blurted out a word, blurted out some words that kind of showed his cards. And I went, oh God. And then so when I went back into the pictures of when I met everybody and the emails to when the first people started contacting me to get consults, like I found that, there was like a dozen people that contacted me a week after I went to Inyokern. It was right after, like I went to Inyokern physically, crossed the line, and then they pulled the trigger and the operation began. And it was all right in the short time right after Inyokern. And when I saw that, I went, oh God. And then I looked, the house I was in was bugged, and it had all these, it would creak. There was a microwave array about a mile away that was just popping up out of the mountain that had no purpose whatsoever. And I was walking one day and I looked at it and I went, what? In my house that I was in on the street, houses face the street. My
Uh-huh.
house was like this in a square lot, which made no sense, facing the microwave array. And I would get up in the morning and have coffee and sit down, and the ceiling right above me would creak, crack, crack, like very loudly. And I go, that was weird. And then people would come over and say, Tony, there's spirits here that follow you. There's spirits. Be be nice. Talk to them. Don't upset the spirits. Like people would just drop in and say that. And I go, and I didn't buy into it. And I thought maybe there's a cat or something up there on that's making the roof. But the house was extremely loud. Like when a house makes noise when the temperature changes. It was the loudest house I ever been in. And friends would come over. JP is a whistleblower. He stayed the night in our guest room. John Charles Moyen and Melanie came and stayed days with us, and other friends like stayed in the guest room. And JP was like, "Man, there was something." He's like, "The ceiling all night long." I was like,
Wow.
"Yeah, I don't know." And so I went for a walk. When I was putting it all together, I just went for a walk in the neighborhood. I looked up and I saw this a mile away. And I went home and then I flew my drone over it and got pictures. And then I used AI on the power cable. And I said, what kind of power is going into this? And what is this array? And it was all these things pointed right at my house. And I said, well, what can it do? And then I immediately made a report and emailed, you know, Danny Henderson, Dr.
Yeah.
Sala, Elena, JP. I emailed all my friends. I said, look, this is going on. I drew it. I showed all the pictures. The house never creaked again.
So what was the source of the creaking, do you think?
It was a microwave array. It was the house was built and there were mirrors so the bathroom was mirrored, and the way that the heating was made, the house was engineered. When I looked at what this could do, they could bounce microwaves off and change the way you feel. I kept waking up exactly at 3 o'clock. They were interrupting my dream cycle. Waking up at 3 o'clock, I'd go somewhere else. I'd go to Europe and sleep fine, or go on to a conference and sleep just great, and go home and couldn't wait every 3 o'clock on the dot. And the house would creak and say, but what I'm saying is and then I was doing a remote viewing on film. I was filming a remote viewing for Elena's book,
Yeah.
and the house made the most noise ever. The front door started popping, and I had somebody on the camera, and I said, I got to check this out, just like I did with you. I had somebody
Yeah.
at the door.
Yeah.
I did that. Hang on a second. Nobody at the door. The door was like moving. And then I came back in and I started filming and doing a remote viewing again. Then my skylight on my bathroom did it. It wasn't the whole house getting a windy day, but it was flexing. It had this. So I said, I gotta let you go. Something's going on. I gotta stop this. So I was interrupted from my
Right.
work. So they had that. What I mean is, I was inside a grid. I was inside a machine. It was a psyop. Whatever. I crossed the line and got close to the evidence. Got close to real tangible evidence of my account,
Mhm.
which is a classified program, still classified information. So they did something about it, and
Who's behind an operation like that?
my best guess is it's the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, but that's just a guess. And we uncovered dream warfare, dream influencing,
Mhm.
and other remote viewing stuff. Like there was a lot of things that came to light there that are very uncomfortable for me to talk about still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
thank
yeah,
you
it was a
for,
small education.
yeah, thanks for, giving us at least a window into what that experience was like. Yeah, I think it just shows us that there's so much going on we don't realize that the capabilities are way beyond what anybody imagines. And yeah, sometimes I think we attribute a lot to our own personal failings. We tend to blame ourselves and think that we're deficient somehow, when actually, we're living in a system that makes it really hard to fully express yourself in a natural way. And it's been a real challenge.
We think we live in a system that is bungling and mindless, when in reality it does exactly what they want, and they're very good at everything they want. Every dollar, everything that they want at the very top gets done.
Mm,
And they have a very good eye on us
mm.
and what we do. And the secret of protecting, these programs, um, goes back a long time, and they're very motivated to protect their secrets.
So, what's your positive message or insight, if you have one, in the face of all of this synthetic control?
I went on stage after, so I was spooked.
Yeah.
I also got poisoned during that time, so I was very spooked. Whether they wanted to kill me or just kind of cripple me, I don't know. But I'm still uh, recovering, I think. I don't know. Um, I was very scared, uh, and at a loss, and kind of just want to continue my work. I want to develop these products, the learning system and the Scion, and I just want to make a living and carry on. I don't have some kind of, hatred towards these people. But I was really spooked about it, and spoke at the GSIC
In
in
Charlotte.
Eastbourne. No, the one in Eastbourne in the
Yeah.
UK. And I was mad, and the crowd there was really kind. And I said, and I shared everything I could with them about what happened with the crowd, because it was only within weeks of the
Yes.
discovery.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there, and
Yeah.
I said the thing. My positive spin was, if everything that I'm saying in my book and everything that I'm talking about is BS, they wouldn't have messed with me. They wouldn't bother with me. These are people that are these are people that are on to very big problems in the world, and they wouldn't touch me if it wasn't important. So that all they did was validate me. Whatever happens, well, I can choke on a chicken bone tomorrow. All it does is validate everything that I've said. And I think that my book is gonna matter in the future
Mm.
after I'm gone. I really do. I think somebody in the future, post disclosure, when we're already out there and they disclose and everything, somebody's going to read my book and go, "Oh, wait a minute." I just have that feeling that some detail is going to be relevant in the future. At least I hope so.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything else that you feel compelled to share at this time?
Just that the whole subject, they're getting ready to tell us. So who knows? 2026, I've been saying it for 10 years. I hope disclosure is coming soon. I don't know for sure when. And I know that we're ready. It's the people that are in charge are not ready,
Yeah.
right? To give up power in a certain way, to move to the next level. That's really the holdup. But they're getting ready to tell us. And if them sweeping me under the rug and people like me so that we can get the watered down version of the truth is still the truth. And it's still the opening. Once it begins, it won't stop. And it doesn't matter how much of my testimony they sweep under the rug. It doesn't matter at that point. Mankind will go to the next level. And I think that's the biggest takeaways, the mindset of it. Like I'm not trying to prove a point or go and fight with people. You got to believe what I'm telling you, or else. Like really, the future is going to happen really quick, and it's going to happen really quick. Once it starts, it's going to happen very quickly, and it's a good thing. I'm not afraid of AI. I'm not afraid of the Chinese. I'm not afraid of anything that they're going to do to us as we go. And that, I think that's the best mindset, that the future is bright.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. I'm happy to hear that confirmed yet again by somebody that I respect and admire. And I just want to thank you so much, Tony, for spending all of this. This is a great amount of time, and thank you so much for being here with me, for sharing your story, and for just being willing to go there in all these different ways.
It's my pleasure, Claire. You've been great the whole time I've ever known you, and I'd love to come back if you'd ever have me.
Oh, we'll talk about that. Thanks so
Okay.
much. Thank you for being here for this expansive and deeply human conversation with Tony Rodrigues. What I appreciate most about Tony is that he does not ask anyone to believe him. He's so real, and he's just simply sharing what he's lived with the humility and the clarity and the groundedness of someone who has walked through an unimaginable landscape and returned with pieces of a larger map. So whether or not the details mirror your own worldview, what matters is the vibration, the invitation to question the limits that we've inherited, to reclaim the memory of our true nature, and to recognize that we are not small, powerless beings living in isolation. As I always say, isolated fragments in a hostile universe. That's not who we are. We are vast, multidimensional fractals of a living universe. So if Tony's story resonated with you, you can explore his book, Ceres Colony Cavalier. He's got more books coming out. He's got upcoming projects, his frequency work at TonyRodrigues.com, and Scion also. I've put all the links are below for you. And I'm happy to say that he'll be returning to the Grace Space very soon to share even more about his work with obelisks and crystalline technologies, frequencies, and his newest book. So as always, thank you for listening, for staying awake, and for choosing remembrance over fear. If this episode nourished you, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Give us a like, those things, leaving a review, a comment, those things are important for the algorithm. If you feel inclined to do that, I thank you for it. We all thank you for it. And share this episode with somebody who's ready to expand the frame. Until next time, stay in your sovereignty and walk in grace.
You've been listening to The Grace Space. To amplify this field, you're welcome to like, subscribe, or share. Thank you.